This is the eHealth Radio Network, your source for health advice on demand. And now your host, Eric Michaels.
Thanks for joining us once again here on the eHealth Radio Network. This is your host, Eric Michaels. eHealth Radio gives you the most current health information, news, and advice featuring some of the leading innovators in healthcare and wellness who are changing healthcare as we know it. For more eHealth Radio reports, we invite you to visit our main radio channel site at eHealthRadioNetwork.com. Today on the program, we're speaking with Mr. Mark Diamond. He's the Managing Director and CEO at Antisense Therapeutics Limited. Antisense is an Australian publicly listed biotechnology company developing and commercializing antisense pharmaceuticals for large unmet markets in rare diseases. And Mr. Diamond, thanks for joining us here today.
Hi, welcome, Eric. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Certainly an honor and a pleasure to have you, and we really do appreciate your time. I know you stay busy. So let's start out with Antisense Therapeutics. As we had mentioned, is an Australian publicly traded biotechnology company that's working on commercializing antisense therapies to treat some of the largest unmet needs in healthcare globally. If you would, tell us more about Antisense. How is the company specifically developing treatments for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and describe who is affected and the number of patients that are potentially seeking treatment?
Antisense Therapeutics is, as you highlighted, an Australian-listed biopharmaceutical company. The focus of Antisense Therapeutics is to advance the clinical development of our pipeline of antisense medicines. Antisense medicines are effectively highly targeted and well-tolerated drugs that are very specific for the disease indications that we're developing these for. The company, as you highlighted, is really keen to advance our programs in diseases where there's a need for better treatments, as you highlighted, where the current therapies aren't meeting what's required for the patients. And we're, in fact, focusing there in the rare disease space, where there's even greater need for effective therapies, but where we can benefit commercially from the higher prices that are generally available for products treating rare diseases. Our lead program is for this disease, Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Eric, this is a devastating muscle wasting disease that affects boys. It is caused by a genetic mutation of a gene that's responsible for producing a key protein for muscle function. So these boys with Duchenne's aren't able to make enough of this protein in the muscles, which over time causes them to lose the strength and function in the muscle. So initially they lose it in the legs, lower body, limbs of the lower body, requires them to use a wheelchair, usually by the time they're about 5 to 7 years of age. Then it affects the upper limbs of the body. It's as I said, a devastating disease, unfortunately 100% fatal. So we are focusing in trying to develop a drug that can effectively slow that steady and insidious muscle wasting and loss in the boys. And we are looking at the moment at starting what we call a phase 2B clinical trial that we're looking to run in Europe and Australia. And the goal of that therapy is to treat boys that are more advanced with their Duchenne's who will become, unfortunately, wheelchair bound, where we're looking to see if we can preserve the important upper limb strength and function of these boys to really have a positive effect on the quality of life of them. So that's the focus of our Duchenne program. There's, I think you asked about the numbers. There's roughly speaking about 35,000 boys in the Northern Hemisphere, US and Europe, that have Duchenne's. About half of those boys at any one time have advanced to the point where they become non-ambulant. So this therapy of ours really will be potentially available to quite a large number of boys with Duchenne's who today have no real effective therapy available to them beyond the use of a drug class called corticosteroids, which are very effective, very blunt anti-inflammatory drugs that cause really serious side effects. So we know these boys and caregivers and physicians are very keen to see an improvement over the corticosteroids. And, we think we've got a really exciting candidate here in our drug AT1102.
Thanks for the thorough coverage and response. That certainly is most helpful as we lead things off here today, and looking forward to learning more. We also are most thankful for what you're doing in the space as well. Now, Antisense conducted a new preclinical study, I understand. What did that involve, and what were some of the results there, and what's next?
Sure, Eric, and we have recently reported results from a very important preclinical animal study. The study that we ran was set up to test our drug AT1102 in combination with a drug that's already on the market in the US for treating the younger boys with Duchenne. So these are the boys who are ambulant, still able to walk. And what we were looking to do is to see if the combination of our drug with this class of drugs that's available in the US would improve on the outcomes of just using those drugs that are currently available in the US for treating Duchenne's, using them alone. And so, we saw in this animal study the use of the combination having important benefits or improvements in muscle function in mice that had this specific genetic mutation where they weren't able to make sufficient levels of the dystrophin. So it's a really important outcome. Next step for us now is to dive deeper into the data, to have a look at the muscle tissue in the mice, to see what effects we're having on that protein dystrophin. This is the protein that in boys they're not making enough of, to see if we're having any positive effects in increasing the levels of dystrophin. So really exciting outcome on the functional data in these genetically modified mice. What we're hoping now is to show further that we are actually having positive effects at the cellular level in increasing the levels of dystrophin. And that news is not far away. We're expecting to have that out before the end of this calendar quarter.
Certainly a positive report and a lot to look forward to in those regards as well. Now, COVID-19 is a part of many people's lives. There are a variety of new returning or ongoing symptoms that people experience more than 4 weeks after getting COVID-19. Tell us more about this, if you would.
Eric, it is, as you described, continuing serious health issue globally. The symptoms of long COVID persisting, just as you highlighted, for beyond 4 weeks. We know, of course, that in some patients they will continue for 6-12 months. After having the primary infection from COVID. So there is a clear need for better ways of diagnosing patients with long COVID, and of course in treating these patients. We know in the US more than 20 million people that have experienced symptoms of long COVID and have very significant and debilitating side effects, particularly the neurological ones. So we've done some really exciting work where we've identified some important markers in patients that have the neurological symptoms of long COVID, and in particular experiencing the brain fog that people know is having a significant impact on the cognitive function in these patients. And so that data that we've generated has led to us filing some important patents around the diagnosis and treatment of long COVID. So we think we've got some really important innovation that we've generated here. We think that could well lead to better ways of diagnosing long COVID and treating the indication. So that's definitely a watch this space from Antisense Therapeutics.
Well, we certainly appreciate all the insight and information shared so far. And again, for your time today, we're speaking with Mr. Mark Diamond. He's a managing director and CEO at Antisense Therapeutics Limited, an Australian publicly listed biotechnology company developing and commercializing antisense pharmaceuticals for large unmet markets and rare diseases. Here on eHealth Radio's Health News Channel, a part of the eHealth Radio Network. Now, Antisense is addressing medical needs and also financial opportunities as well. Tell us about the size of the market and the opportunities there.
Eric, I think first and foremost, the focus of the companies we highlighted is to develop effective therapies for patients in desperate need of better drugs. And I've outlined the high clinical need for these boys with Duchenne's, particularly the boys that have become more advanced with the disease, to try and slow this muscle loss in the boys. But of course, it is important, being a publicly listed company, we have shareholders in Antisense Therapeutics who are looking at the economic benefits that can come from us, successfully advancing our program. So we know that in Duchenne's, while it's a rare disease, there is a significantly large number of boys, as I mentioned, about 35,000 in the Northern Hemisphere that have this disease, that are keen for accessing better therapies. Today, I mentioned before the drug class of therapies available in the US, where we're using our drug in combination with. These are drugs known as the dystrophin restoration agents. Last year in the US alone, they sold in excess of $800 million US in sales in we calculate an addressable market or population of about 30% of the boys with Duchenne. So what we know is that the pricing of these therapies that are available in the US is at a premium. The average pricing for these dystrophin restoration agents in the US is approaching nearly $1 million annually per patient per year. So it is an area in desperate need for better drugs. One may think because it's a rare disease that the economics around that may not be that significant, but clearly in Duchenne's, it is a very big commercial opportunity should we be able to develop a successful drug. And, when we say big, a successful agent in Duchenne's, if you can use it across the broad range of boys with Duchenne's, which we expect our drug AT1102 will be applicable for, could be a blockbuster, which of course by definition means selling in excess of $1 billion annually. So, it really is exciting for us, not only from the benefits that we might derive for the boys with this terrible disease, but also for our shareholders if we're successful in the economic benefit that will flow.
Yeah, for sure on that, and a lot to look forward to in that regard as well. Lastly, what's next for Antisense looking at 2023 and even next year, 2024, and where can we find out more information?
Thanks, Eric. So 2023, company is laser focused on advancing our clinical study for AT1102 in Europe and Australia, this phase 2B clinical study that I mentioned in non-ambulant boys with Duchenne. So we're looking at getting approvals through to start that study, enrolling patients into the trial, and looking to then complete this study. We've told the market that we expect to have the study completed and results reported in the first half of 2024. So we're looking forward to report on significant progress into the study and then trial results into 2024. But then we've got data, as I mentioned before, on our combination animal study. That data is due very soon. We've got our fingers crossed that we will see the type of cellular improvements, increasing dystrophin levels in these mice beyond what's achieved with just using the single agents alone. And so we're hopeful that that data will be positive, because if it is, that could then allow us to contemplate moving into clinical studies in patients with the combination. We also have a really exciting program in another rare muscle wasting disease called limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. And we've got an important animal study running with results due middle of this year. There are no treatments for limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. Again, it's a very debilitating disease, affects about 4,000 Americans who have got nothing to date to treat that disorder. We're collaborating with the Jane Foundation in the US, not-for-profit organisation who are looking for a cure for this disease. They've been very helpful in helping us or assisting us in setting up those animal studies. So we've got our fingers crossed on positive results in the middle of the year from this animal study that could then lead us into a clinical study, as I said, in this disease where today these patients have nothing available to treat them. So a really exciting period for us. We've described it as a seminal year for Antisense Therapeutics, lots of news flow, and most importantly, we're sitting in anticipating data that could be very, very important for communities such as those in the Duchenne's world and limb-girdle muscular dystrophy world who are looking for and hoping for better treatments. So, I think we'll get a great insight into that in that period you just highlighted. And to find out more, Eric, please jump onto our website, Antisense, www.antisense.com.au. We've got, all our recent announcements. We've got very detailed analyst research available on there as well too. And of course, people are most welcome to reach out to me, mark.diamond@antisense-therapeutics.com.au.
Once again, Mr. Diamond, we're thankful for all you're doing through Antisense Therapeutics Limited. And folks, for more details, simply visit antisense.com.au. Mr. Diamond, thanks so much for joining us here today on eHealth Radio.
Thanks, Eric.
And you're more than welcome. We've been speaking with Mr. Mark Diamond, the Managing Director and CEO at Antisense Therapeutics Limited, an Australian publicly listed biotechnology company developing and commercializing antisense pharmaceuticals for large unmet markets and rare diseases. And for all the details, visit antisense.com.au. And again, this has been your host, Eric Michaels, and we do thank you for your continued support of the eHealth Radio Network. Join us again soon for another episode that will help further expand your knowledge on those things that are important to your health and wellness. For more eHealth Radio reports, we invite you to visit our main radio channel site at eHealthRadioNetwork.com. And as always, we do thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to the eHealth Radio Network. For more information or to subscribe to this podcast, visit eHealthRadioNetwork.com.